before we get to the episode, I wanted to tell you about something super fun that I've been working on, and I'm so excited that I finally get to share it with you. I've created merch for photographers. Guys, I created this collection with you specifically in mind because let's be real, you know I love to be comfy cozy, and I felt like we could all use a little extra comfort while we're editing, shooting, or just kind of living our lives as photographers. So I created an editing blanket that's basically a hug in blanket form, and of course, perfect for editing. I created socks that have a little camera on it, and it's so cute, so it matches our branding, but also keep our feet cozy. Hoodies for chilly shoot days, hats, t-shirts, stickers, water bottles. I could go on, but I won't. I'll let you check it out. It's all live now at alexblakeeducation.com. Let's get to the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today I am so excited because I get to have a guest that I just met on the pod. So this is exciting for me because sometimes I have my friends on the podcast that I get to hang out with in daily life, and other times I get to have people that I just get to meet for the first time. And today's that. So Chantel Miller, storytelling, is on the pod with us. Say hey, Chantel.
Hello.
And this is our first time meeting, which feels crazy. We were just talking on the podcast, or like before we started recording the podcast, that like I feel like I know you, but I'm excited to actually get to know you because social media is weird where like we feel like we know each other.
Yeah. You like learn each other's personalities and then you get on and actually see your face and you're like, wait.
Yeah, this is so different. It's so funny how like podcasts, I feel like having a podcast has been so fun though, because it makes the world a little bit smaller. Like, you know how social media does that too, obviously, where we feel like we know each other, but then you have a podcast, you get to like actually face to face or like Zoom, I guess. But like get to know someone. And it's just so fun getting to do that.
Yes. So excited.
So excited. Okay. So basically, Chantel, if you guys don't know her, basically she's a wedding photographer. She is like an artist to her core. And I think this is really cool, but she's a Nikon creator, like an official Nikon creator. So I am super excited just to like hear your whole story. But eventually we're going to do something fun. I've been doing like little games at the end of my interviews lately. So we've done some like fun ones where it's like rapid fire questions. But today I was thinking it would be fun to do photography red flags at the end. So I'll give you like a red flag and then you can give me like what you would do in that scenario, which I think will be fun. But before we get to that, I'll ask you some questions. So share a little bit about like your photography journey with us, your story, touch on obviously like your background in fine arts. I know we were talking about that before we started recording, but I'd love to hear that. And then also something I didn't even have in my notes because I didn't know it until we started talking today is that you own a studio. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that too.
Okay. So I'm going to take you way back. This might be overkill, but I feel like it's important to the overall story of how I've gotten where I've gotten to. So growing up, my mom always had a camera in her hand, a good old film. So I have just always grown up around my life being documented. And with that, we went on a lot of road trips, mom and dad and me and my siblings, and they always recorded like the old camcorder and film the entire trip. Cool. So they just documented a lot of our lives growing up. So I've always been used to it. So I think that really plays into, you know, why I went down this road for a career choice. But
totally.
In high school, I went to a super small Christian, like private high school. And so they only had a couple electives. Like you could choose choir or art class, like just general art. Wow. And I chose choir because everyone in my family can sing. I found out I'm not one of them. So
you and me both, girl.
Oh my God, how embarrassing. Like my brother can pick up any stringed instrument and just play it on command. And my mom used to be a wedding singer. So anyways, found out that I am not musically inclined and I dropped out halfway through to take art. And that's actually where I found out that I had this skill to draw and paint. So my dream was always to be a fine artist, but young Chantel decided that was not a good career choice. So I ended up taking a Photoshop class where I had to learn a little bit of photography and kind of the editing side of things. Cool. And that was actually just in my last semester of being a senior in high school. and I went to college then to be a graphic designer. So I went for graphic design and marketing, but I was on an accelerated 3-year track to get my 4-year bachelor's education in 3 years' time.
Cool.
And with how that was set up, I couldn't finish my marketing, my second marketing major. So I switched to photography. And I learned how to shoot in manual, and I had a very artistic photography teacher. So
Cool.
learned on a film camera, learned how to develop in a dark room, and like she didn't call it storytelling, but it was teaching storytelling and just
Wow.
like the deep emotions behind what a photograph can evoke. So because I couldn't finish with my marketing, I switched over to photography, and while I was in college needed some experience, and I actually used to be very athletic, and not anymore, but I wanted to be in the athletic industry. So I started shooting athletic photography actually.
Yeah.
Um, I remember doing my first couple weddings in college to pay for tuition, but I absolutely hated it so much.
Really? What?
Um, yes, and I was like, I'm never gonna be a wedding photographer. Like, it's not me. It's
No way.
stressful, and I loved athletic photography. I specifically did football and basketball because I knew the plays and I could read the players and I knew where they were gonna throw the ball next or whatever. And I
That is
started
not my brain.
yeah, I started switching my mindset and realized, well, I just don't know the plays of a wedding day yet. I don't know how
Mm,
each planner is running a wedding day. I just need to get into it more and understand their plays. So I like the rush of athletic photography because you get that
yeah,
one chance to get the slam dunk. And it's kind of the same way on wedding days. Like, this is never going to happen again in this exact
sure.
time, exact moment. I get that one chance to get the first kiss or dad tearing up during his first look with his little girl. Like, that's not going to ever
That's
happen
cool.
again. So, the big thing that switched in my brain is when I met my husband. And we got married in 2020 in the middle of COVID shutdown. And
Classic.
yeah, like our venue shut down like 5 days before our wedding day. It was a
Oh
whole
my
thing,
gosh.
but that's another story. So uh, learning like what real love is and
Hmm.
what like how beautiful a marriage can be, that's what really like set me on fire to do wedding photography. So ever since
Wow.
then, that's been like my focus. I do other photography, but you don't really know it because of my social media presence since I focus on weddings. So
Yeah.
yeah, after college, I was working doing graphic design with branding and through different marketing agencies and organizations. And I just got to the point where my business was blowing up and I wasn't really marketing for it.
Mm-hmm.
I just was getting into weddings faster than I knew what was going on. And I was shooting 30 weddings a year with a full time job.
Wow.
And it was
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I was not sleeping. I was
That's
not seeing
wild.
my husband. So I got to the point where I actually went to another photographer's retreat. Her name is Liv Vincent. She's from South Bend.
Cool.
But I traveled with her and some other girls to Oregon for my first photographer's retreat. And she gave us this instance of trying to balance work life,
Mm-hmm.
which I had none of. And she said, so since we don't get weekends off because we're working on the weekends, you need to give yourself at least 2 days off after every wedding to give yourself that rest time. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay,
So
Liv,
good.
that's great. But I work a full time job. Like when I get home tonight on Sunday, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bed and I'm getting to the office by 8 a.m. tomorrow. I can't just
Right.
take 2 days off. So what do you recommend I do in the meantime? And instead of answering that question, she said, "Well, are you hitting your financial goals? Are you
Mm.
hitting your other goals?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I surpassed my yearly salary with my little side gig." And she's like, "So what's holding you back? Why are you still working with
So
me?"
what are you doing?
Yeah. And I was like, duh, what am I doing? So I got home from that trip and told my husband, I think I'm going to do this. Like, I think
Wow.
I'm quitting my job. And it was really scary. And we prayed a lot about it.
Sure.
But I turned in my notice, and within 3 months of the next year, like I surpassed my entire yearly salary and had time to see
Wow.
my husband, lost a ton of weight because the stress was leaving my body,
Yep. Yep.
and was just able to take care of us and me again. So ever since then, I haven't looked back. I've been focusing on my business, and
That's
yeah, we've made
incredible.
a good point that if I was doing that much while still working a 40-hour job, like imagine what you could do with your business if you had those
Yeah.
extra 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so I just really focused on that and pouring my heart and soul into it, and got it to a place now that I'm still just kind of mind blown that I'm even been blessed to be in this spot. So
Totally.
yeah, that's kind of a
Yeah.
long
Timeline
story.
wise, when did you go full time?
So when I left, I was working at a university in
Mm-hmm.
2022. I left in January or February. And I worked a part-time job still
Yeah.
at a wedding venue in the area as their creative
Cool. Smart.
director. So I was still like fueling that part of my
Yeah.
life that I need to do that. But this past February, I decided like I'm still doing too much. I need to just go
Yeah.
all in. So
Yeah.
it's been less than a year where I've been like totally just
You
channel
go, girl.
storytelling.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I actually love that you brought this up. I don't think we've ever talked about this on the podcast, but I love that you brought up the idea of, okay, you left your full time job, but
Mhm.
you went to a part time job.
Mhm.
And I think some people are really scared to take that leap.
Mhm.
And I always am encouraging of that leap, like taking the leap of faith as long as you're doing it in a wise way, right? And like you've done the math of your finances before and all of that kind of stuff, like take the leap. But
Yeah.
also, if it's too scary of one, you
Mhm.
can take one step down.
Oh
You
yeah.
can go find a part time job, or, if your job offers a part time role, or whatever, just switching over to something like that. But like that's an option. And then for you, like you took it in steps and then it was like, okay, now I feel confident. Now it's time. I'm just going to full send. And
Yep.
like there's nothing wrong with that. I think like people can get so constricted in like the rules of life, but like there
Yeah.
aren't any rules in life
No,
and in
you need
creativity. You can just go step by step, like do what makes you feel comfortable in that moment. But I bet it was so freeing even going to the part-time role. And
oh,
then,
oh yeah.
yeah. And then when you left the part-time role, even more so. But it was like step by step. I love that kind of
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. I'm like kind of 50-50 with how my brain works. Like a lot of
Yeah,
artists think with the right side of their brain, they say, which is very artistic and go with the flow. And
sure.
the other side is very logistical. And I'm like kind of right in the middle where I'm like, I'm a dreamer, but I do it smart.
No, I'm the same way with that kind of stuff. I like to plan. I like to have my
Mhm.
ducks in a row before I make a big decision, definitely the exact same way as that, but also very creative. And I love that you talked about like your background in fine arts because I
Mhm.
think like when I look at your work, it's weddings
Mhm.
but yet there's an art to it. And I don't do a lot of weddings. I used to do a lot of weddings, veered more into seniors after. But I think what I didn't love about weddings for me personally was
Mhm.
that it felt like less of my art and
Mhm.
more of like capturing someone else's day and vision. And that's great for some photographers. But for me, I didn't feel like very connected to that. What I
Mhm.
love is that it's paired for you really beautifully. Like for you, you're talking about, yes, the event of it. And like you want to capture the tears of the father seeing the, bride for the first time, like how beautiful that is. And that's a once in a lifetime shot. But you also pair it with this like love for fine arts that you have. How do you feel like maybe that love for fine arts and your background in it has maybe influenced the way that you approach photography and even like edit your images too?
Yeah, very heavily. So, I used to um I used to try to edit like all the top dogs in the industry. I wanted to like make sure I was fitting the bill for what people were
Yeah.
looking for when I was really trying to get into the wedding industry, and it was not working. I was not like I was trying to get senior bookings, families, whatever. It just was not working, and it's because I was not fully in love with my
Yeah.
style, and it was not true to me. And once I decided, whatever, I'm just going to make art for myself and capture it the way it makes me feel something and edit the way it makes me feel something,
Mm,
that is when everything took off.
that's
So,
cool.
when you tie fine arts into that, of course, like knowing art and design fundamentals really helps with like the
True.
logistics of a photo. But like I spend a lot of my time in art museums because I love absorbing art, and I look at the way the painters years and years ago captured the light, and I like seeing how they interpreted color in an orange. Like it's not just the color orange. Like there's going to be purples in the shadows and
Mm,
whatnot. And so, anyways, I just really like absorbing that art, and I love kind of Baroque and neoclassicism, which is very dramatic. If you look at those paintings, it's
yeah.
deep shadows and it's bright highlights and it's really rich colors. And
Mm,
a lot of that type of art also has really pretty architecture, like columns and arches. And so, if you were to look at a gallery full of that type of artwork and then you looked at my portfolio, it's like, oh, that's
that's
where
cool.
that's happening. So I definitely draw a lot of like how I capture things and how I edit into the type of art I love as a person outside of my business.
That's really cool. Okay, I have so many questions off of
Okay.
that. But first, let me ask you this. I
Yes.
know obviously you were talking about like you developed that style and then it was like everything clicked for you.
Hmm.
Do you have any advice for any photographers who might be listening and they're like, "Okay, that's great, but I haven't found my style, so nothing is clicking." Like what would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah. So I feel like if you are a photographer who has not had training like I
Mhm.
have. So I have the background, I went to college for it. If you don't have something like that, I would recommend taking a course, and not even on photography, but art fundamentals, because
Cool.
understanding color and um, lines and textures and just everything that a course like that can teach you, I think that understanding and taking it back to the basics is
Mm.
going to help you understand what you're drawn to. Um, Even thinking about like your branding, like you want to think about
Yeah.
colors and textures in your branding too. It really should just be an entirely cohesive experience.
Mhm.
So, if I wanted to be a adventure elopement photographer and I want to go hiking through the mountains with my couples, um, I think of very earthy colors. Let's
Yeah.
say that I want to do Utah, not like Alaska. I want to do Utah. Um, you probably want to do some color studies on like those warm browns
Yeah.
and
That's so good.
oranges. But if you want to be an Alaskan elopement photographer, you want to look at those greens and blues and I would even suggest like traveling to those places that you want to
Yeah.
be marketing to. And that's kind of what I did in the beginning. I didn't mention this, but I did styled shoots at the very beginning of wedding photography. And I went to all the different terrains. So I literally hiked through Alaskan mountains, decided that's
Wow.
not going to be for me. But I love the colors of it. I love my greens and my blues, but I tried Utah. I don't like those warm colors. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to shoot areas that don't help my branding and my editing
Yeah.
style, that don't complement it. So, but yeah, bringing it back, I would look at art and design fundamentals, learn color
Mhm.
theory, and then just play around. Like, I went through a phase where it was really, really blue, and then it was really, really warm, and then it was true to tone. And then I kind of found this middle mark of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But yeah, do lots of different types of shoots and just play around with it until you find something that you're like truly proud of. Like if you
Yeah.
would be embarrassed to show the world or to share it and you're not like, look at this art that I made, then that's
Yeah.
probably not your style.
That's so good. And I also think it's important, like, to note that it can change.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you love can change, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe even just, okay, say you find a style that you love and then you find another style that you love and that becomes your art. It's okay, but maybe change it slowly for your audience. So it isn't night and day, like you don't want to flip it too soon because then your clients don't know what to expect. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think like looking at those colors that's such a good tip. Like, Chantel, I can't tell you, like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Because
Good.
for
Good.
me, yes, like, as far as the colors go, and for me personally, when I moved from Georgia to Charleston, there was a
Mhm.
huge shift in my work. And I really felt like I kind of came into myself as an artist and what I liked and my style really nailed down at that time. I was an okay photographer before, right? I'm still an okay photographer, but my style is what shifted. And that's what really made a huge change in what clients were attracted to me, what people
Mhm.
wanted to follow me and hang out with me on Instagram. Like all of that really shifted when
Yeah.
I discovered my style. And that really came from the locations I was shooting in. And
Mhm.
I knew I liked blue before because I loved denim. Like that was something where like I always found that whenever I was editing, I loved the color of denim. For whatever reason, that was like something that stuck out to me. But when I moved to Charleston and I started shooting at the beach, I was like, oh, it's not denim that I love, it's
It's
blue. Like
mhm.
I love blue and
Mhm.
I love oranges. And so those sorts of things. And then now I find locations that specifically have those colors. Even if I'm shooting downtown, I love to share. And my favorite photos are the ones from the white and blue buildings.
Mhm.
Like it's that kind of thing that really like shifted my style and my art. So I love that you brought that up because even if somebody maybe doesn't have the money to go through like a full on course right now, YouTubing color theory is free.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's so, so helpful to kind of know yourself in that way and then know like your surroundings in that way too. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
Um, Going back to what you were saying earlier too about your style, you were talking about like if we looked through your Instagram, we would see things like columns and I can't remember the other things that you said too, but things that
Arches.
are
Yeah.
arches. Okay, yeah. Columns and arches and things that are like heavily influenced from like the fine art kind of style. I was wondering if there was anything that you do specifically like day of a wedding or a session to basically like aesthetically capture the couple knowing your style. So do you look for arches and columns at the venue? What if they don't have all columns and arches? Like, do you
Yeah.
have poses that you do? Tell us everything.
Yeah. Okay. So many things I could say. Such a loaded question. Yeah, so I feel like because of my portfolio and because I'm an artist and I make that very known, I
Yeah,
get to work with a lot of artists who also appreciate
cool.
those things. So a lot of
That's
times
cool.
they do have a venue that really complements my love of that because they're very similar. But if there are, let's say it's a farm wedding. I actually had I'm thinking of a very specific photo right now. I need to send it to you, but um, it was a like old farmhouse, and they didn't have columns and arches, but there was a
Yeah.
little cutout, in the living room through the wall, looking from the living room to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I had the bride stand over in the living room. I moved like the furniture out of the way and I shot through this hole in the wall and it just happened to be
Cool.
an arch. So like that's one way I was able to do it. Let's say there's nothing like that. Um, I create other shapes with them to mimic
Okay.
my style. So let's say like she's off in the distance. It's golden hour. She's off in the distance looking over the coast and he's closer to me. He's just looking at her, but maybe he holds his hand up like this to like fluff his hair and I'm
Cool.
shooting through this space to create just unique shapes in the composition rather than just like shooting over his shoulder or having them stand next to each other.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, my brain is like turning right now. That's so good. Hey friends, Alex Blake here. Just wanted to interrupt really quick to invite you to Photo Camp. The 2025 Photo Camp is March 13th through 15th in Folly Beach, South Carolina. If you're a photographer looking to level up, find inspiration, or just build community with other creatives, this is the camp for you. So here's what we can expect. We're going to do 10 styled shoots throughout the weekend so that you can add them to your portfolios. We're also going to stay in a luxury camp house by the beach, and we have 5 educational speakers featuring sessions from Georgia and Micah McMaster, Preston Luke, Shelby Cuenca, Danielle Hickman, and me, Alex Blake. We're also going to take care of all of your meals so that you can focus on learning and creating and connecting, but spots are super limited. We already have some people signed up, and I would love for you to join us. In fact, from now until January 1st, if you mention in the application that you listen to the podcast, I'm going to give you $100 off an all-inclusive pass. So what are you waiting for? Head to photocampinfo.com to apply now, and let's make 2025 your most creative year yet. See you there. Okay, so how do you feel like, and maybe you just answer that with that answer, honestly, but how do you feel like you balance kind of the creativity and the unpredictability of an event, of a wedding in photography, but yeah, when things don't go to plan, are you still able to be that creative in the moment? Or is it like, I can only feel this creative when I have the time and space to be creative? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes. So I actually I love weddings because I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like I create best when I am under pressure and there
Cool.
is some obstacle thrown in my way. Like, I can't even think of an example right now. You know, if it's going to rain
Yeah.
or whatever, you just never know what is going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but I love that, like, I travel for most of my weddings, so I'm not shooting like the same venue every weekend. I love
That's
that.
cool.
And that means that I'm not going to the same spot and using the same pose in the same corner every weekend. I'm at a brand new venue that I've never seen in person. And so my gears are always going.
That's fun.
So, um, you know, if I get the chance to look at a venue the day before, then I will. And I kind of scout things out as a, like, what if, like, you're planning on doing your first look outside and it starts pouring. If we have bubble umbrellas, like the see-through umbrellas, like we could do that. But if they're not into
Yeah.
that, you know, I can figure out what corner to take them in
Cool.
inside. So
Well, I can't have you answer too many of those things because we're going to talk about our photography red flags
yeah.
and have you answer these scenarios later. So don't go too into detail about that. But when we were just like chatting about doing this podcast, you mentioned training your mind to be more creative. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that? What does that mean to you? And maybe do you have any tips for other people training their minds to be more creative?
Yeah. The reason I brought it up is because I feel like a lot of people, when I'm talking to them about the creative process or how I create the moments that I do or the photos they see,
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh, my mind just does not work like that." Like, how do you think of that stuff? Think of that stuff. Sorry. Um, and I know it might come a little more naturally to me, but there's still ways that I work on myself
Yeah.
to feed my creative mind. an example for you. I was doing a course with Henry too. It was like the art of adventure elopements. Again,
Cool.
not doing adventure elopements. Figured that one out, but he had a really good example in there of just doing like these mind exercises, and the example was asking someone the use of a paperclip,
Hmm.
just a paperclip. Like most people would say, well, you clip together papers with it, but like, what if it was a 10-foot tall paperclip? Or what if the paperclip was made out of rubber instead of metal? And thinking about all the possibilities that this
Cool.
paperclip now has. So to think like an artist to me is to think like a child. And we were all
Mm.
kids at one point, and we were all creative. We were all little artists, making our little drawings. And I think it's really just diving back into that and just having fun and remembering how to play in a creative
Wow.
way.
That's really cool. It reminds me of, if you're going to become a writer and
Mhm.
write a book, like somebody will give you a prompt and you write on that prompt. I
Yeah.
feel like that's similar to the paperclip kind of exercise. And I haven't really thought about that before, but I'm like, how can I train my mind? That sounds fun, like
It
even
is
just
fun.
thinking about that. So that's
Yeah.
such a cool thought. I feel like that's a lot to chew on. So I
Mhm.
want to think more about that, honestly, after this podcast.
Great.
But tell us a little bit more about your partnership with Nikon, because I think that's really cool too. So obviously you have a unique relationship with the brand because you're a partner with them. But tell us a little bit about like what that partnership looks like, entails. How do
Yeah.
you feel like maybe it's even influenced your creative process or even just the gear you use?
Yeah.
Anything like that. Tell us everything.
Okay, let me see here. So, I've been a Nikon girly since I was able to afford my first camera. So,
Okay.
college days, it was time to buy a camera, Nikon. Um, I
What was the reason for going to Nikon?
Yeah, so I literally went to like a camera store and I held them all in my hand, and honestly, I liked how the Nikon felt in my hand. But I really love the colors
Yeah.
of a Nikon at the end of the day. I saw some raws from a Canon. No hate, but I love my Nikon colors,
Yeah.
and their glass is just so good. But anyways, been with Nikon for a long time, going on a decade now of using their gear. And when I really started getting into my content creation, um, because when I'm passionate about something, I let people know.
Yeah.
I just started tagging Nikon in my content creation because I wanted them to know like what gear I use. My followers, I wanted them to know what gear I used and how I achieved an outcome with a certain type of lens. And from there, yeah, Nikon reached out about this new program called the Nikon Creators official partnerships now. So there's 9 of us.
Cool.
I'm one of the 9, so they handpicked us all. And yeah, basically, when they reached out, they said, "We just want you to keep doing what you're doing, just representing the brand."
That's cool.
Um, so yeah, I used to use the Nikon Z6 II. Um, what brand do you shoot with?
I shoot Sony.
Okay.
Yeah, I started on Canon and then I shifted to Sony.
Yeah, okay. So I can't remember the equivalent Sony to that, but yeah, the Z6 II, it's a pretty small body, which makes it easy for
Mhm.
me to travel with. But then once I partnered with Nikon, I got a hold of the Z8,
That's the
and
newest Z, right? If I
that
remember right.
is yes. There's another one that just came out, the Z6 III, like she
Oh,
brand
okay.
new, hot off the press.
Nice.
But yeah, the Z8 is like a good marriage between the Z6 II and the Z9.
Okay.
The Z9 is like big, heavy, gonna hurt to hold above your head on the dance floor for 3 hours. But yeah, the Z8 is like a good middle ground, not too
Yeah.
heavy, and it still it has the same amount of megapixels as the largest camera that you can get.
Cool.
Um, but as far as the rest of my partnership, did you have any other specific questions about
No,
that?
I just wanted to hear about it. I always think it's such a like cool thing for any photographer to like partner with something as massive as a brand, like that is specific to photographers, like obviously like a Canon or a Sony or a Nikon or an Adobe. Like that's just such a cool
Mhm.
thing to me. So I always just want to hear about it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still like mind-boggling to me that out of
Totally.
all like the wedding photographers, like why me?
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for it, and I actually get to meet my team for the first time in a couple weeks from now. We're all meeting
Nice.
up for a official partner content week, so there's some cool stuff
Cool. Is
coming
it
up.
the creator camp?
No, it's something just
Okay.
for all of us partners. We haven't actually met in
Cool.
person yet, so it's going to be awesome.
Aw, that's so
Yeah,
special. That's amazing. Well,
yeah,
I'm so excited for you. I think that, again, I just think it's a huge thing. So I just want to celebrate any photographer that gets that. It's like such an amazing thing. But
yeah.
okay, I want to move us on to photography red flags. Dun, dun,
Okay.
dun. Okay,
Mhm.
haven't done this before. So if anyone hates it,
Pressure.
let me know. Yeah. Let me know if anyone hates this and I won't do it again. But basically, I'm going to give you some red flag scenarios, things that happen on a wedding day that are just as big red flags. Like we do
Yeah.
not want to happen. They're basically little horror moments throughout a wedding day. So I'm
Oof.
going to give you the example of the scenario and I want you to just tell me what would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am ready to put out some fires.
Here we go. Okay. I think it might progressively get worse. I don't know. So we'll see.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay. Here's the first one. You already talked about this a little bit, but it starts raining right as the bride and groom step out for their first photos together. Dun, dun,
Mhm.
dun. What do you do?
Yeah. Okay, so like I mentioned before, I would probably offer an umbrella if they are not into that. They're worried about their hair getting wet, whatever. I would just bring them inside to a cute little corner. And honestly, if there aren't cute little corners, at the end of the day, for me, it's not as much about the location as the
Mm,
emotion. So as long as there is enough space for me to pan around with the rest of my media team, that's the answer.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great little like snippet though. It's not as much about the location as it is the emotion. That's like tweetable. You remember when people used to say that?
We
Tweet. Okay, here we go. Second red flag scenario. Aunt Jill keeps stepping in front of your shot with her iPad. What do you
Jill,
do?
Jill. This is such a big problem. No joke. So normally when this does happen, I go up and I tap their shoulder and I'm like, hey, cut it out. You're in the shot. Yeah, normally it's you say coming down the aisle or just in general.
We can do coming down the aisle,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, if it's coming down the aisle, I pat their shoulder. Please put that down. But if it's like in general, like Jill is following us around with the iPad, normally I just kindly ask that she lets us have our time so that the couple can focus, and that normally does the job.
Yeah. I had that one time where you're saying like to follow you around. Back when I used to do weddings, I had an elopement downtown Atlanta, and it was just the couple and the family. And grandma the
Oh,
whole time was
yeah.
not just following around, but like getting in front of me.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
literally. And I was like, Grandma, I'm so sorry, but you gotta chill. Like you
Yep.
can't do this.
Okay, well,
Okay.
10 steps back now.
Yeah,
Walking
literally though. I'm like, hey, I'm
forward.
just
You're going
gonna
to say
take them
that
and
great.
walk by ourselves. Okay, here's the next one. Are we ready?
I'm
Here we
so
go.
ready.
The memory card corrupts halfway through the ceremony and all your previous shots are lost. What do you do?
Okay, well, first off, if you're a
First
wedding
off, I'm crying.
photographer, if you're first off, if you're a wedding photographer, please make sure that you have dual card slots in your camera.
Yes.
Okay, number one, please
Yes.
don't shoot a wedding without that. Um, so yeah, with my camera, the first slot has a CF Express card. The second is a regular SD. So if that CF Express card corrupts, like I don't think I've ever seen that happen. So I'm not sure. But I would for sure check that your first SD card is good to go.
Yeah.
Swap it out. If it is gone, start praying. And then
The only
probably
option.
yeah. But for real, if like it is like corrupted and like gone, I would probably reach out to the videographer, see if there's like any way to get stills from the video
That is
and
really smart.
try your best to like save it that way. Cause at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like that sucks so bad, but I'm all about problem solving. Like think about who else is there with you who captured those moments and
Yeah.
try to save it
That
that way.
is really smart. Would you offer a refund?
I would probably it depends. I let's see where it goes with the videographer first. I would
True.
definitely offer a reshoot of
Yeah.
certain parts. So like obviously, like I mentioned before, you can't redo like first look. Like you're not going to get those moments back. But let's say you started with all portraits in the morning and that's what you lost. I would definitely just offer a free reshoot to redo all those photos for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, here we go. Next one. One of the groomsmen had too much to drink and he's not cooperating. What do we
Oof.
do?
Listen, I normally
That one's too real.
I get yeah, every weekend. No. They're normally pretty good. But yeah, I normally I get my big girl voice out and I'm like, "Hey, listen. This is what my husband always says. The quicker you smile and pay attention, the quicker you're done here and you can go keep drinking."
Love
Um, yeah, they normally snap into shape pretty quick.
it. That's true. You got to get the big girl voice on. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Bride has a list of 50 different extended family shots during cocktail hour. What do
hmm
you do?
Well, to any of my girls listening right now, sorry, no, I'm just kidding. So I feel like a lot of my clients do really, um, they put a priority on their family, and so
Hmm.
that honestly does not sound like out of pocket. It takes a
Mm.
long time, but how I get through it is I have one of those little tripods that like fits on my hot shoe of my camera,
Yeah.
and like a lot of people use it for BTS, but I put my family list there.
Smart.
And so I can just read through it if I don't have a second shooter. If I have a second shooter, she's right next to me calling off everybody. Um, yeah, it goes by pretty quick, but just I always remind my couples if this is your priority, great.
Yeah.
But if you prefer to have more bride and groom portraits, like we're going to have to make some of these individual groups
Yeah.
a full family group and we're going to
Yeah.
have to move on. Yeah.
And if you're a newer photographer listening to this, something that Chantel just said is really important. She has a list of everyone
Mhm.
previous to the wedding day. The couple is giving her a list with names of people that she needs to call out. And then, even if you don't have a second shooter, having somebody to be a family wrangler is really,
Mhm.
really smart too. So I love that. Okay, here's a big one. Woo, here we go. You miss the first kiss. What do you do?
Oh, shoot. So if it happens in the moment and you're freaking out, what I would do, just keep shooting like nothing happened. But as soon as the ceremony is over, she'd be like, "Hey, should we get a picture of just like the two of you at the ceremony arch before family photos start? Remake the kiss. All you have to do is use that and replace them in the original shot with the crowd in the foreground."
Ooh, has this happened to you before? Tell us
I
the
will
details.
never tell. I will never tell.
Okay, you don't have to. You don't have to. Okay, here's the next one. The planners are off their timeline and they leave you with only 10 minutes for couple portraits. Ah, what do you do?
Um, wow. Well, there are different things that I would recommend. At the end of the day, the time you get is the time you get, and that's
Hmm.
why it's so important to have your creative mind ready to go. But yeah, run through as many things as you can. Um, my last wedding of the year, I had like literally 5 minutes left. And we still got some great portraits. At the end of the day, it's not about taking a full hour. It's
Yeah.
the moments that you can capture in the time that you're given. But if you only had those 10 minutes, the sun is going down, there's no more golden hour left, and the couple still wants to prioritize more portraits, I would recommend some late night editorial direct flash.
Love it.
Whether that's out front of the venue or like in a little corner and they have some spicy portraits, you can always swing that, when
Yeah.
everybody else is eating dinner, and just pull them aside for even a few
Yeah.
more minutes.
That's good too. Yeah. And it depends on what their priority is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Last one. Here we go. And this one I'm sure you have encountered. The
Okay.
ceremony lighting is dark and orange. What do you do?
Oh boy. So always have a flash on you.
Mm-hmm.
You do not, listen, beginner Chantel didn't always have a flash on her. That's younger Chantel's mistake, but flash can really save you in this situation. But it really comes in post editing, fixing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it comes down to it, and I'm assuming everyone's editing in Lightroom, play with your oranges and your yellows. Um, and if you must, play with your grain, add denoise, use the denoise tool if you need
Yes.
to. And then sometimes what you'll run into, if like there's orange walls and like the couple's really tan, those colors can be really similar when you're
Yeah.
editing. So if needed, you can always mask the couple and like
Yeah.
change the oranges in their skin tone versus the walls. So that would be my
So good.
recommendation.
I love it. Well, you crushed all of those. Seriously. I mean,
Awesome.
I just threw those at you and you were like, yeah, here's what I would do immediately.
Been through a lot of weddings. Been through a lot of weddings.
Well, that's why we ask you. That's why you're the professional, Anyway, okay, well, where can everybody find you, Chantel? Like, tell us, where everybody can look for your photography and learn from you and all the things.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Chantel Miller Storytelling. Same on Facebook if you're still on there. TikTok, it's just Chantel Miller Story because the username was too long. But yeah, you can find any of my photography there. And I'm actually getting into education for photographers. So you can find that type of information on my Instagram, tips and tricks on my TikTok. But I also have an education page on my website,
Woohoo.
chantelmillerstorytelling.com. And I've got some freebies on there for everybody.
That is awesome. I know everybody's going to love that. Well, I'm so excited. I'm going to go check it out after, see what I can learn from you too. But if anybody is listening to this and you are interested in learning more, obviously about Chantel, go follow her. But also, if you're just learning more about photography, you need an escape from life, whatever. Applications are open now for photo camp. I've been talking about this every week, but seriously, please go apply. I want to meet you. I want to hang out with you. I want to shoot with you. We have 10 styled shoots, 5 educational speakers, and we're all in a luxury camp house by the beach. So make sure you go to photocampinfo.com if you want to check more about that. And otherwise, we're peacing out. Don't know why I said that, but we're going to go with it. We're peacing out. And I will see you guys next Thursday. Love y'all. Bye.
I just